Welcome to Allyship in Practice, Creating Safety and Inclusion, a micro-learning video from Screen Access Alberta. This video is part of a series to help you foster more inclusion on set for all types of screen productions. To learn more about Screen Access Alberta's commitment to diversifying Alberta's film and television industry workforce, visit our website at screenaccessalberta.ca/equity. Being an ally or practicing allyship is an important part of making change when it comes to inclusion. Advancing civil and social rights always includes the acts of allies, people who hold power and privilege and are willing to use it to benefit others. But allyship is also often misunderstood. This video will help explain what allyship means, different ways to practice allyship, and how true allyship can make a difference for those who have been denied equity by systems of oppression. One of the biggest misconceptions about allyship is that it's something you are or are not. Allyship isn't a state of being, it's an active practice. Allyship is the practice of using your privilege to advance the interests of a historically disadvantaged or oppressed group of people to which you don't belong. Allyship is about working in solidarity with these groups experiencing discrimination. It's about standing beside or behind that group, not taking the spotlight, but amplifying their voices and experiences to make change. Allyship is not done for someone, it's done with them. Ally is also not an identity that people can claim. The group of people you are working alongside when acting in allyship get to say whether you are an ally. Allyship also isn't one specific thing. There are many ways to act in allyship and many different systems your actions can affect. Let's look at 3 different categories of reflection to consider about the spectrum of allyship. Individual actions are the steps you take to educate yourself, model good behavior, change your mindset, or all of the above. Reflecting on your individual allyship means asking yourself such questions as, what do I want to learn about? What steps can I take to learn? How can I do that learning without putting any additional burden on the people I want to be in allyship with? Interpersonal actions involve supporting others and advocating for equity in your day-to-day interactions. Here, you'll want to reflect on questions like, how do I engage with others? How am I actively understanding and disrupting my bias? Am I unintentionally behaving or acting in ways that continue to cause harm? Finally, structural actions involve pushing for more equitable norms, policies, and systems. Because structures are so ingrained in our society, and because you might not experience those structures in the same way as others, this is a category of reflection that includes questions such as, which systems are underlying exclusions and barriers? How do those systems affect different people in different ways? What is the history of that? How can I use my privilege to advocate for more equitable norms and systems? Are, in broad terms, 2 types of allyship, performative or active. The goal is to focus on the active side of allyship. You've probably heard the term performative allyship before. It's about wanting to look like you're a part of the solution without participating in any meaningful action. Performative allyship involves empty statements, initiatives created without involvement from the group that needs the allyship, lack of commitment, short or long term, lack of effective resources, and one-off approaches. I'll give you an example. Think back to when people blacked out their Instagram and Facebook profile pictures in support of Black Lives Matter. People did this in an effort to show solidarity with the movement. However, the action had no commitments or follow-through and only brought attention to themselves, not to the issue of police violence against Black people. Active allyship, on the other hand, is genuine and authentic. It involves the community, outlines clear commitments, allocates money and resources, and is transparent about the process along the way. Active allyship centers the voices of the people experiencing oppression and puts their needs first. It can be loud, and it can also be quiet. Active allyship isn't about getting attention or a pat on the back. It's about making a commitment and following through on improving outcomes for others. Here's another example. After the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, many organizations released public statements condemning racism and support for Black Lives Matter. Some of these statements were well received, and some of them were not at all. Brian Moynihan, CEO of Bank of America, said that the company was doubling down on its work to address racial inequality with a $1 billion commitment over 4 years to help communities. Amazing, right? Allocating money to support the initiatives is essential, and this was a substantial amount of money. But this statement failed to state the importance of this work. What measurable actions would be taken, how progress would be tracked, or how efforts would continue, if at all, past this 4-year plan. On the other hand, Google CEO Sundar Pichai made more specific commitments. First, Google would work to improve Black plus representation at senior levels and committed to a goal to improve leadership representation of underrepresented groups by 30% in 2025. Second, he committed to address representation challenges and focus on hiring, retaining, and promoting at all levels. Third, Google would work to create a stronger sense of inclusion and belonging for Googlers in general, and the Black plus community in particular. Fourth, they would establish a range of anti-racism educational programs that are global in view and able to scale to all Googlers. Fifth, Pichai focused on better supporting the mental, physical health, and well-being of Google's Black plus community. Most importantly, under each of these goals, Pichai stated examples of what Google could implement to make these commitments well-informed. Google took an active approach to organizational integration. Where they're at now? Well, active allyship needs ongoing commitment, not just time-limited or politically convenient approach to equity. So what does it look like to practice allyship in the moment? Let's talk about one of the most common situations where allyship may be necessary and some techniques to practice allyship in those moments. Microaggression is a comment or action that is felt as subtly expressing prejudice against a person or group of people. Microaggressions are defined as brief and commonplace daily verbal, behavioral, and environmental indignities, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative racial, gender, sexual orientation, and religious slights and insults to the target person or group. These are usually rooted in stereotypes and often manifest as either surprise or praise that someone doesn't fit into a stereotype, or a suggestion that they do and should not. The micro in microaggression comes from being interactions at an interpersonal rather than systemic level. It should not be confused with minor because the effect of microaggressions have on folks is far from minor. Many people may be unaware that they're committing microaggressions when they in fact are. It still counts because of the harm they cause. Microaggressions have become so commonplace that often people fail to see the harm they cause, and that harm comes from deeply held and socially learned biases. In the end, people make statements or ask questions that seem innocent but hold oppression at their core. For example, the following phrases are microaggressions, as they are focused on an individual rather than a system and can be hidden in dismissive phrases such as, I was just joking, or it's an honest question, or it should be taken as a compliment. You don't look gay. Wow, you're really articulate for. You're so lucky you're in a wheelchair. You always have a place to sit. At least you never get cold with all that extra padding. No, but where are you from? When people react negatively to these phrases and phrases like them, it's not because people are too sensitive or woke culture is not letting us say anything anymore. In fact, it was never okay to say a lot of these things that were said. It's that folks who have been oppressed didn't have the ability to push back. That limitation is part of the oppression. Think about it. How would you feel if someone constantly mispronounced your name, despite it being said clearly many times and having corrected on the pronunciation before? Yeah, it's not a great feeling. Now, imagine it's every day and that no one really tries to get it right anymore. In fact, they've asked you if they could both go by a nickname. As we've said, many people engaging in microaggressions may not realize they're doing it at all because it's so normalized. This is an area where allyship can make a big difference to change these norms and get people thinking differently. So, what happens when we witness something problematic? How can you act in allyship? There are a lot of things to do, including two immediate options: call someone in or call someone out. You might need one of these or both. Calling in is an invitation to engage in a process of learning. It's used to bring attention to a person or a group's harmful words or behaviors. This is an approach grounded in reflection rather than reaction and is best received when there's an opportunity for people to explore their actions on a deeper level. How? Have a private conversation with someone to explain why their choice caused harm. Offer an opportunity to learn more that doesn't require the person harmed to do the teaching. These are just a couple of private ways to let the individual understand what they chose to do was unacceptable. It gives the person an option to understand, apologize, and correct their behavior in the future. Calling out, on the other hand, is used to bring public attention to a person or group's harmful words or behaviors. Calling out interrupts harmful comments in real time. This is an immediate, nope, we don't use that language here, or excuse me, but that's not an okay comment to make. Calling out can be dangerous for some people and can heighten an already tense situation, but it's crucial to do it when the time calls for it. When someone else has been directly harmed by an action or comment, it's important that we demonstrate allyship and solidarity by demonstrating our values externally rather than being silent and allowing folks to think that such an action is acceptable. Lastly, calling in and calling out can be used together. Sometimes we have to call something out in the moment to prevent further harm. Whenever possible, we should follow up with calling in that person to help them better understand why their words or actions were harmful. Again, acting in allyship is genuine. Calling out to show off or calling in to be right are acts of appease the self. Calling in and calling out are about being clear with others about boundaries, respect, and what is or isn't acceptable on your set. Let's look at a few more ways to call in or call out. Calling in invites more conversation. Some ways to start calling in conversations are, what do you mean by that? That's interesting, but why do they think that's the case? I used to use the term X, but I learned it can hurt Y. Or how did you determine? Calling out conversation is drawing a line or enforcing a boundary. Some ways to respectfully call someone out include, I need to stop you right there. I don't think that's funny. Those aren't our values. You may want to think about that and maybe we can speak about it later. That comment is harmful and offensive. As we've discussed, allyship can take many forms. Calling in and calling out are just two interpersonal actions that any of us can take when we're in a situation. But active allyship is much more than this. It's individual, interpersonal, and structural. It needs us to commit to create change for equity denied people, and it is about standing beside or behind, not in front of those you're working to support. A fundamental part of working in allyship is understanding the complex barriers and diverse experience of these people. To do that, we need to listen to their stories and amplify their voices so others can hear them too. So before we end this video, here's your go forward challenge. Open your favorite social media app and find 5 new content creators who speak about the world from a viewpoint you have no lived experience with. You don't need to actively engage with them. Just follow them, read, and listen to what they say. Listen to the challenges they face. Listen to what their day-to-day experience is. Every month, pick 5 new follows. By the end of the year, you'll have diversified your worldview by 60 people, and you didn't even need to do anything different. Just scroll as per usual. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about allyship in practice. For more information, microlearning videos, and resources to help build an inclusive on-set experience, visit the Screen Access Alberta's website at screenaccessalberta.ca/equity.